For this section, we're going to be talking a lot about vocabulary to begin with, and then we're going to do some examples in a later video. But first of all, we need to talk about all the vocabulary that's associated with points, lines, segments, rays, and how we denote those things, what the notation is for them. So if you'll see, to begin with here, we have what is a point, and a point is a single position. It has no depth or width or anything like that. It's just a single place on the number line or on an x and y axis system. So for instance, here we have points A, points B, and point C. So we know what a point is, hopefully. And now we move on to lines. And whenever I say our proper notation for points, we just say point A or point B or point C. That's proper notation. For lines, we can name lines one of two different ways. We can either name this as being line M, or we could name it as line AB. It's probably better notation to write it this way, with the line going over the A and the B. That signifies that is line AB or line BA. You can go in either direction, it doesn't matter. Then we have things called planes, which are a two-dimensional figure. It has both an X and a Y, basically, a flat surface. You could think of it that way. And we name planes one of two ways. We could either name it as alpha, just a single Greek letter, or we could name it by using points within it. So this would also be plane A, B, C, because those are points within the plane. Or this particular plane here could be labeled as gamma. Now, we also need to talk about a couple of other vocabulary words before we get into more stuff. In geometry, there are things called axioms and theorems that we use a lot. Now, these are things that we use to help us know that different things are true. What are axioms? Axioms are true statements that cannot be proven. And some of the axioms that we use in geometry are things like there is exactly one line that contains any two distinct points. If 2 points lie in a plane, then the line containing the points lies in the plane. And there is exactly one plane that contains any 3 distinct non-collinear points. We're going to talk about non-collinear here in just a minute also. But these are just a few things that we use that cannot necessarily be proven, but that are true. Now, I said we were going to talk about collinear. Collinear points are points on the same line. Think about linear being in there as part of the term. Linear meaning line. So any 3 points that are on the same line are called collinear. Now this point here, D, that is not on the line, so that would be non-collinear. Not collinear. If A, B, and C are 3 distinct collinear points lying on the same line, then B is between A and C if and only if the distance from A to B plus the distance from B to C is equal to the distance from A to C. So our distance from A to B plus the distance from B to C is the distance from A to C. Now notice that D is not collinear. It's not on this line, so that doesn't work into our definition there. Okay. A line segment, or just simply a segment, is a smaller part of a line. So here we would have, if we were looking at maybe like this line up here, but we just took the portion from A to B and we didn't use the rest of the line and only looked at that, that would be called a closed line segment, meaning that its endpoints are valid. We name that by just putting a straight line above AB, or we could name it as BA. Either way is just fine. Now, not always will your endpoints be closed or be valid points. Sometimes they'll be open circles. And whenever you have that situation, then you have to denote that open circle over the proper point. So in this case, we have our open circle over A and then the line running to B. That denotes line segment A to B, where A is not included as part of your answer or part of your solution. In this case, both of the endpoints are open, so we have to put that in the notation also. We have to be very careful about our notation. Now, here we have line segment, or a line rather, that's ABC, or you could name it AB or AC or however you wanted to. But they say here that BA, and they have a little arrow pointing over it, and BC with an arrow, they're called opposite rays. They are technically, if you're looking at this line, you could say, okay, from B over to A, that would be a ray, just kind of half of a line. And then also B over to C would also be a ray or half of a line. So those would be opposites. Now, if we wanted to properly name this line, this ray right here, we would properly name that as AB with a ray symbol over the top of it. Your endpoint here should always be the endpoint of the ray and not backwards. With lines, it doesn't matter, and line segments. You can name them either way you want to. But with rays, you have to be very careful that you're always starting off with the point end and then moving towards the arrow end with your naming. And then finally, they talk about a half line is a ray without an endpoint. We generally don't work with those very often, but that is true. So in our next video, we're going to tackle planes.